It begins with a barcode printed bold on the milky white skin. The girl trembled all over, sweating profusely. The little girl staggered step by step through the mountain pass. Suddenly, she tripped over a roadside rock. She collapsed with a thud onto the cold ground. Hundreds of eyes flashed as they advanced toward her. Her face turned pale. "Please," she begged them. She pleaded desperately. "Please." Her gaze was now nothing but fear. A laser beam swept across her face. She was hung upside down, the laser scanning her body once more. Her tears fell in agony as a feeding tube was forced down her throat. Their actions had only just begun, as they inserted an excretory tube. Her whole body writhed as the excretory tube was being inserted. The girl's feet flailed wildly while the excretory tube was being inserted. Then she convulsed as the excretory tube was being inserted. Finally, they released her. The excretory tube insertion was complete. The chief clerk was sitting, sorting through a pile of documents. Herrick entered from outside and greeted the chief clerk, standing before him, his voice a little hurried. I am the new attendant, Herrick. I'm here to report." The chief clerk held the paper in his hand. "Born noble and fond of the arts. You can paint, right?" Herrick immediately replied. "Yes, sir, chief clerk." The man looked up at him. "You used to paint a lot of nudes, didn't you?" Herrick flinched, waving his hands awkwardly. "That it's from training, that's all." The chief clerk put a hand on his shoulder and laughed. "Relax. I was only joking because you seemed tense. You don't need to be so serious working for me." He remained a bit reserved. "All right, I understand." The man stood and walked out. "Now, I'll take you to get acquainted with the workplace." The chief clerk walked on the red carpet. "Right. I forgot to ask you some basic business questions," he muttered as they walked. "How much do you understand about the blood slave wards?" Herrick thought. Blood slave ward is the ward for patients afflicted with blood slave disease. He pictured people with barcodes on the back of their necks. Those with the blood slave disease had a striped mark there. At that point, the church would send people to assist the patients and place them in the blood slave ward to preserve their lives. Herrick continued. Otherwise, the emergence of blood slave disease would bring unforeseeable disasters to the patients and those around them. The chief clerk descended the stairs. "You're absolutely right. You're different from the noble sons I know." He followed behind the man. "Isn't this basic?" The chief clerk led Herrick to a dim room. "Now, come closer. Press your right eye to this to input your information." Herrick placed his eye against a scanner. Click, click. A door immediately opened. Inside were countless cylindrical tubes arranged there. Herrick walked, looking around. "Is this where blood slave patients are admitted?" The chief clerk strode ahead. "No, this is merely storage for the blood slave pods. The intake process isn't completed here." He pointed in one direction. "What does the illuminated symbol on the pod mean?" The man answered. "From left to right. Hormone levels, cardiac load, liver load. These parameters can be combined to reflect the condition of the blood slave's bodily fluids inside the pod." The chief clerk tapped the surface of the panel. "You can also turn on the secondary screen to view." A mechanical face appeared. "Like this, it will let you visually assess the condition of the blood slave inside." Herrick watched the man's every move in silence. The chief clerk smiled proudly. Besides daily supervision, he was also responsible for painting portraits of newly admitted blood slaves. Seeing him embarrassed, the man asked, "What's wrong? Painting isn't unpaid. I'll raise your salary." Herrick replied softly. "It's not about the portraits. I think it's better to call them patients." The chief clerk began to ponder his words. Herrick continued. "If we call them blood slaves, isn't that humiliating? They don't choose to have the disease, and besides, they haven't developed symptoms or caused harm yet." The man laughed aloud. "So that's how you think? Fine, suit yourself." The chief clerk waved him on, then decided the portrait matter. "Now, let me introduce you to your colleagues." Herrick was surprised. Colleagues. He led Herrick to a door. "This is the main control room where you can operate the blood slave pods." The chief clerk opened the door and stepped inside. Raina tugged at her sleeve and stepped forward with a smile. He whispered, "A female colleague." The man looked at her puzzled. "Miss Raina, why are you here?" Raina waved a shoe. "Thanks for your hard work. I have something to attend to, so I'll excuse myself." And with that, she walked out in that manner. Another voice called out, "Good day, chief clerk." Wit smiled brightly. "You're here. Why didn't you let me know?" The chief clerk frowned slightly. "Does it matter? I told you 2 days ago a new colleague would arrive." Wit kept smiling. 2 days already. Time flies." The man shoved Wit hard, making his face change. The chief clerk grabbed his collar. "Listen, Wit. This is the second time I've seen you bring someone here." Wit immediately changed his tone. "It's hard for me to refuse a noble lady's request," the man snapped. "Do you understand where this is? If you bring anyone here again, I'll reassign you, understand?" Wit nodded repeatedly. Yes, understood." Herrick thought to himself. "This is the second time, and it's only a verbal warning. Though he seems stern, he's actually a very easygoing commander." Suddenly the chief clerk turned sharply. "For today, just get familiar with the place. You can start work tomorrow." Herrick flinched and replied, "Yes sir, chief clerk." The man added and left. "Wit, I'll leave Herrick to you. Become acquainted since you're colleagues. I have business, so I'll go ahead." Wit immediately answered, "Yes, sir." After the chief clerk stepped out, the door slammed shut. Herrick extended his hand to Wit. "I'm Herrick, pleased to meet you." Wit didn't respond. He turned and said, "They're gone, hurry and leave." Seeing someone step out, Herrick was astonished. "There's more." She smiled and waved. "I'm off now, Lord Witta. Farewell, Sir Iron Helmet." Herrick waved back. "See you later." Wit smiled. "Take care." The two of them suddenly fell into a quiet silence. He suddenly spoke up. "I know what you're thinking." Wit smoothed his blue hair. "I'm forced into it too. Someone as handsome as me was born to be women's plaything." Then he struck his chest. "See? She wanted to feel the iron and steel element. So this is all I could do. Do you think I enjoyed it?" Wit rambled on about many more outrageous demands. Herrick raised a hand to stop him. "I didn't ask about those." Wit kept his smug look. "So what's that then?" Herrick wondered. "Why not let both girls go together? What's the point of keeping one?" Wit sighed. "I think you don't understand at all," he continued. "This is what this place is. We can't just let outsiders in." Herrick silently judged. "And yet he dares to speak." Wit began to explain. "Reyna is nobility, so you can't touch her. But if an ordinary person were caught, it would be disastrous." Herrick probed. "Really? Is it really like that? I thought the chief clerk seemed kind and tolerant." Wit wanted to say more, but stopped. "It's not bad for their own, but never mind. You'll see later." Seeing Wit leave, he asked, "Where are you going?" Wit kept walking. "Off work, I'm heading to the tavern." Herrick was surprised so early. Wit moved toward the door. "You should come too. I'll buy you a drink." A golden light shone from a small door. The girls there kept flattering him. "Lord Wit, you're amazing." Another added, "Another drink, please." He slammed his beer mug down on the table. "That's more like it." Wit was getting drunk. "You're an interesting fellow, always wearing that hat, never showing your face, even drinking through a straw." "Are you too ugly to face people?" he replied calmly. "I hide under the hat because I'm afraid of direct eye contact. It's because I'm sensitive and self-focused." Wit goggled in surprise. "What a joke, do you have to be that deep?" Herrick soberly said, "Sorry. I become extremely rational when drunk." He raised his beer again. "With you like this, how can you make the girls happy? Are you still a virgin?" He threw his head back and shouted proudly, "Exactly." Wit clutched his head in helplessness, yet proud. Then he changed tone. "Speaking of pleasing women, can you do me a favor? I heard you can paint." Afterward, Herrick brought a painting before Wit. "It's finished." He admired the painting. "Amazing. Reyna looks exactly like that." The two girls beside him marveled. "So beautiful. So beautiful." Wit held the painting, studying it. Though Reyna was recognizable at a glance, if she looked exactly like her mirror image, that would be ideal. He shook his head. "That's impossible. Humans can't do that. Only a divine creation might." Herrick asked why he wanted him to paint Reyna. Wit replied casually, "Because I like her. Besides, she'd be delighted to receive it." He stirred his beer. "You want to paint someone just because you like them?" Wit excitedly shouted, "Stop staring, drink up." Herrick mumbled a few words. On the other side, a pod began to shake violently. Two people standing outside were discussing something. The inspector began to record. "All blood slaves transported to the storage are accounted for." The man in white hummed. "Let's depart." The giant vehicle prepared to roll. Inside, strange symbols flickered to life. Each cylindrical pod bore that symbol on the outer glass. The robot face suddenly appeared. Herrick held the dossier. "Number 003274 has been confirmed. Return to the archive. This is the last blood slave pod transported today." Wit struggled to push the cylinder into place, finally done, exhausting. He stared at the numbers in the file. "From what I've observed, whether in the old storage or this new one, the coding on these pods is almost completely chaotic. If they were ordered, inventory would be much easier." He waved his hand. "Impossible." Wit explained seriously. "Each blood slave pod is reusable." Herrick seemed to realize something new. "Indeed, the time for the patients inside to be cleared from the pod differs." He laughed aloud. "Disease. You really know too little about this line of work." Wit's face grew serious. "The blood slave disease is incurable, and in the end they only die inside." He fell silent and pondered for a long moment. Absent-minded, he suddenly said, "Oh right. Miss Reyna invited me to the opera today, so I must go." Herrick was astonished. "It's still work hours." Wit hurried off. "Don't be so rigid. Yesterday I bought you a drink, so today it's your turn. You've fallen into my trap." A crowd gathered outside the theater. Reyna waved. "Wit, I'm here." He handed her a paper. "Miss Reyna, this is for you." Reyna couldn't hide her delight. "My portrait, it's so beautiful." Her voice held a hint of worry. "You must have put in a lot of effort for this, right?" Wit replied. "It's nothing. For Miss Reyna, everything is worth it." Reyna jumped up and hugged his neck. "Love you so much." Elsewhere, a paperclip was placed on a machine. Herrick tapped the keyboard. "Now, whose blood slave portrait shall I paint? First, choose a pod. The newest batch." A cylinder pod was slowly lifted. He stood with arms folded. But why only paint the new patients? What about the previous ones? Are they unnecessary? And what are these portraits used for? Then Herrick turned to look at a lowering pod. The pod was set into its proper position. At the theater, Wit complained. You didn't buy front seats. Raina explained. I'm just a regular noble. And front row seats are a bit beyond me this time. They continued to chatter. Those seats are specially equipped with attendants. They watched a noble sitting above. Because the theater demands silence. Servant behavior is entirely dictated by observing the patron's words and expressions. So the standards for attendance are very high. He was drunk. After serving, they had to crawl under the table and remain silent to avoid disturbing others. He sighed. To enjoy a performance like that is truly enviable. She sighed too. Isn't that obvious? Wit said. Don't worry, I'll definitely buy Raina a front row seat with the best attendance. Raina immediately wrapped her arms around him. You're so good to me. As for Herrick, he continued with his work. As Herrick pressed, the pod began to open. A small figure slowly emerged before him. Herrick couldn't help but wonder. Is this really a blood slave? The blood slave was pinned tightly inside the pod. Herrick leaned in to observe. A tube in the mouth supplies liquid nutrients to meet basic energy needs. He watched closely. Waste expelled from the body is collected by the pod. Then Herrick opened the dossier. Wait. I remember this pod can only be replenished with nutrient solution through the vent at the top. There's no waste outlet, and no way to eject waste, he wrote while pondering. The only answer is the pod recycles wastewater, mixes it with the nutrient solution, then returns it to the occupant. Herrick's hand began to write faster. He hadn't expected blood slave patients to be treated like this. He looked at that blood slave's hand, and at the many tubes inserted into the body. Surely it must be painful. And it would last a lifetime. In the theater, people were suddenly surrounded from all sides. The people there were still laughing and chatting merrily. Someone stood with his back against the wall, watching silently. Wit lowered his voice. Why are the church's armed forces here too? Raina answered. That's right. They're not here just to watch the play, he thought. Could it be? Wit startled and looked up. He's arrived. He sat up straighter. Don't stare. It's Lord Bolkin, she exclaimed in surprise. Huh, did I hear that right? Wit suddenly grew unusually serious. That's right. He's the Empire's first commander, the supreme leader of the Holy See, the representative of divine authority, the enforcer of God's will, the hand of God, Bolkin Stalker. Raina rejoiced. Wonderful. To see this play with Lord Bolkin is such an honor for us. At the workplace, the pod door was slowly closing. Herrick held his forehead. The plight of these blood slave patients had affected work efficiency, he pondered. Yet ensuring they live and remain healthy is already a mercy granted by the church. Suddenly Herrick said aloud, No, there's no time to waste. Perhaps asking me to paint portraits was meant to help them. He bent over his work again. I must quickly paint another one. At the theater, the showman stepped out. Next, our blood opera troupe will present to you. He pointed. The wall scene is burning. The corner of Wit's mouth involuntarily curved into a smile. The singer appeared with a mellow, somber voice. Cold chains bind your chest, yet they make my heart ache. Her voice echoed through the hall. They crushed your crown, destroyed your dignity. They tear my clothes and torment my soul. Wit listened silently to every line of the singer's song. Her singing was plaintive. I don't want to wait any longer for the news that you will never return. Elsewhere, Herrick continued to press the button. Another cylinder pod descended. The singer on stage tossed off her white cloak. He stared intently at the pod that had just lowered. Her platinum hair fluttered in the wind. I will fight for you. Wit's gaze toward the singer grew more enamored. Inside the pod was an unconscious blue-haired girl. Seeing her, Herrick jumped in surprise. Only then did Herrick panic and realize, Sorry, I didn't expect you're a girl. He hastily raised his hand to cover his eyes, but what he still couldn't understand was that her eyes were open, yet she hadn't fully come to. Why is my heart racing? Should I even be painting? Herrick flustered. Like this, cover below the shoulders first, then I'll paint. After covering her, he couldn't stop his thoughts. The system would shut down much later anyway. The rotary axis was gradually pulled up. Only now did he exhale in relief. Finally finished painting. On stage the play continued. My walled garden burns in great flames. We will die together. At the end of the performance, the curtain slowly closed. Raina wiped her tears with a handkerchief. The lead sacrificed herself to save her lover, so moving. Wit praised, Yes, the leading lady so beautiful. He also asked proactively, That play was really touching. How does Lord Bolkin feel? He tapped his finger lightly on the armrest. Then he said calmly, I'm not very fond of happy endings. After the show, Wit learned there would be a party. Raina nodded. Yes. Unfortunately, my father expects me home for dinner tonight, she added. He asked, Already leaving? She waved and ran off. Goodbye, my love. Behind them, people began to stir and go see. It seems Irina is over there. Whoa. The crowd hurried over. The lead from the play earlier heard, Go check it out. Wit calmly drained his glass. Some sediment still clung to the bottom of the glass. At that moment, Irina appeared in the box, still very resplendent, at the rear of the boxes. The actors were amused. The dance number is next. Do you think she'll refuse them? The showman jumped into the bet. 5 people. Another wagered. I say 6. Just then someone ran over to meet Irina. Miss Star, he offered his hand. I'm Feki, of the Royal Cavalry. May I invite you to dance? But contrary to his eagerness, she wore a disdainful look. Then Wit fanned the flames with a taunt. The invitation failed. Not only did he not know her name, he rushed to flaunt his rank. He pushed people aside to claim the spot. Miss Irina, will you dance with me? In his head he calculated. Let me show you how a master courts a woman. But then Irina accepted the earlier offer. He gaped. What? The actors couldn't believe it. What? Yet Irina danced with that Feki. While dancing, he kept flattering her. Miss Great Star, why choose me? I'm neither tall nor handsome. Have you discovered some special charm in me, or... But then she leaned close and warned. Listen, if you don't want me to kick you out now, shut your mouth, accompanied by a sinister smile. Before that privilege, everyone who passed by marveled and praised. My God, a Feki is dancing with the actress. Yes, it's truly admirable. When it ended, the two immediately stepped apart to opposite sides. Seeing Wit still there, Irina irritably asked, Why are you still here? He put on an overly confident air. A captivating girl is worth waiting for. She bluntly refused. I'm tired. I don't want to dance. But Wit wasn't ready to give up. Then you can rest at my place nearby. Their gazes met for a long moment. Irina suddenly burst into laughter. Finally, she agreed. Fine. Under the dim candlelight, Wit acted like a CEO, cornering her against the wall. He leaned down to kiss her, but Irina stopped him. Is your life that boring? She went on to list them. Betting women, bringing them home. After a few limp minutes in bed, losing all interest, wanting only to kick them off the mattress, Wit fired back, correcting her. Not a few minutes, but tens of minutes. As soon as he spoke, he was slapped hard. Don't argue. And struck. He offered no resistance, and only cupped his reddened cheek. She ordered coldly. Kneel. And Wit actually complied. Irina wasn't done. Crawl over here. He crawled over without making a sound. Once there, he slowly looked up. Seeing this, she smirked in approval. Good job. Then Irina slipped off her shoes. She pressed her bare foot against his face and said, This is your reward. For Wit, this was not an insult. Just as he moved further, she pulled him back to reality. Stick out your tongue, and I'll kill you. Irina ordered, Pick up my shoe and bring it here. Wit obediently crawled out to fetch the shoe, then put the shoe back on his foot. She nodded in satisfaction. All right, that's enough for today. Remember, you can't stand up for an hour. The door finally closed. Wit sat there dazed, humiliated, yet exhilarated. At the hotel, the troops lodging, the showman shouted upon seeing her. Where have you been? You're so late. I thought something happened to you. She hurriedly slipped off her shoes and said, Sorry, he warned. As a beloved star, you must be careful. 2 months ago when you first arrived, you were nothing. Don't gamble your future away. The capital has no saviors. I've seen too many ruined examples. Are you listening? He continued. The short guy who danced with you is from the night troupe. Those people are dangerous. Suddenly, a voice from behind said, Irina's target isn't him. The showman was startled. Kalis, don't sneak up on people like that. Your presence is overwhelming. He scratched his head bashfully. Sorry. Kalis was about to add, I just wanted to explain for Irina, actually she, but he was cut off. Don't say any more, Kalis. Half heard, the showman curiously asked, Actually what? Irina interrupted. Actually, I purposely danced with the short one to make you jealous. Hearing that, the man immediately brightened. Really? So that's it. But not everyone accepted that reason. Someone hiding in the corner snorted. Only a fool would believe it. As for Wit, his mind was filled only with images of Irina. Reina had to call repeatedly. Wit. Wit. He startled and cried out. Huh, she wondered. Why do you keep spacing out? Did something happen? He blushingly avoided the truth. That. Then he made up an excuse. It's work hours now. I should get back to work. But Reina called him out. Aren't you always skipping work? Wit protested wildly. This time is different, and left. Go on ahead. Over with Herrick, it also felt odd. You wanted me to teach you to paint. Why suddenly want to learn this stuff? He honestly replied. I want to paint a picture myself to give to someone I like. Though Wit painted poorly, he was confident. For a novice, it's not bad, right? He asked. Why is it a puddle? Herrick corrected. The sitter. Moreover, Wit was very pleased with his talent. What stage should my gift start learning from? Herrick sighed and advised. Start with observation. He picked up the art kit and asked. These materials look impressive. How many life points did this cost? Herrick answered. It was a gift I received as a child. About 600,000 life points. The number terrified Wit. What? 600,000. Painting costs that much. Suddenly he reconsidered. Wait. You received such a precious gift as a child. Are you nobility? Herrick is your name, your family name, he added. Lumendur. Now Wit was a little intimidated. The legendary Lumendur family. You. But Herrick quickly brushed it off. Not so impressive. My family has nothing to do with me. Otherwise I wouldn't be working here, no. I don't mean to say this place is bad, Herrick tried to explain. Actually, I'm the family's disgrace, But he sulked and left. I'm off, my shift's over. Wit reluctantly agreed. Fine. Though it wasn't yet time to finish work, scene cut to Wit's room. He angrily slammed his glass down on the table. Wit felt resentful. Herrick was nobility yet pretended to be common, which made him uncomfortable. Just then, the door was pushed open. Irina strode in elegantly. She calmly said, Come here. I have a gift for you. Upon arriving, Wit found himself chained with ropes, and the one in control was Irina. Inwardly, he was resentful. Why must I do this? I like her, but this is humiliating. After a moment she ordered, Lie down. Yet Wit obediently complied. When Irina sat on his back, his whole body felt like it was struck by electricity as she settled down. Irina questioned him. I know about you. Thinking it's a sure thing, he blurted out. Your Excellency Irina, my name is Wit Bian. Pleased inside, she wants to know me. She's taken with me already, she urged coldly. Continue. Wit explained that he was a civil servant of the church. The atmosphere suddenly fell silent. He panicked. Not enough. Not enough to attract her. Say something more quickly. Then he admitted. I'm the manager of the Blood Serfs, and I paint portraits of the Blood Serfs. At this, Irina nodded. Interesting. She lowered her gaze and asked, So that means if you mismanage and a Blood Serf falls ill, our whole city's people would face disaster. Correct. Painter. The moon had risen high. Then Wit had to lead the beauty to where she wanted to go. She strode ahead briskly, delighted. He couldn't understand it. Reina wants to come. Irina wants to come. Women really chase thrills. Luckily, coming at midnight reduced the chance of being seen a bit. Wit introduced, This is the main control room. She picked up the stack of papers and asked, Are these the Blood Serf portraits you painted? Wit admitted without shame. Yes, I painted them. Uneasy inside. Why weren't the paintings stored away? Not good. The lights aren't off either. He had to find a way to hide. Wait here. I'll go to the waste room. In another room, Wit tried every approach to get closer. He called out. Big brother Herrick, working overtime this late. Herrick replied. I'm staying late to finish painting, and then propose some management suggestions to the superiors. But why are you here? Are you working late too? Having no choice, Wit begged. My friend is coming to the main control room soon. You must tell them those paintings were all done by me, please. He's startled. Reina's coming, but I'm not good at lying. I'll wait outside. After you leave, I'll come back. This was exactly what he wanted. Fine. He even added, Hide inside a bit, don't be seen. Herrick agreed. Okay. Herrick's large body curled into a corner, now unable to paint further. His mood was depressed. He really wanted to finish the painting quickly. As he leaned on the nearby item, the light suddenly switched on. Herrick was startled. Did he touch the switch? After finishing his discussion with Herrick, he returned. I'm back, Your Excellency Irina. She spoke up. Don't you find it strange? The question was, if the church knows that a blood serf's sickness reduces catastrophes, why concentrate so many blood serfs in the capital? Aren't they afraid of triggering citywide disaster? Wit put on an air of learning. No, our blood serf chambers are reliable. The blood serfs we've tested have never fallen ill even once. Irina's gaze was full of scrutiny. Never fallen ill, or there was never any illness at all. He hurriedly changed course. Of course they can fall ill. Wit recounted that once someone hit a blood serf in a village. The serf later fell ill, and disaster struck. The church intervened and resolved it. But no one in that village survived, and the village disappeared thereafter. She grew curious. Then why not kill the blood serfs instead of spending huge resources to house them? At this point he had the chance to brag. Of course the church is merciful. The chief magistrates wouldn't heartlessly kill lives. Hearing that, Irina froze instantly. Wit took the opportunity to edge closer. All right. Let's change the subject, talk about you instead. Over with Herrick. He was still fumbling with the mess he'd made. It's open. He was rather surprised. It's the girl from before. His voice grew stammering. What a coincidence we meet again. Now's not the time for this. I'll close the door for you right away. But it seemed there was a technical fault. Something's wrong. It won't close. We'd need to go to the control room, but we can't go now. Herrick politely asked permission. Sorry, we need to wait a bit before I can shut the door for you. Looking at the girl, confined inside, pity welled up in him. What am I rushing for? In this state, how could she possibly answer me? Though alive, she had lost the most basic human rights. Even if the girl were cuter, she'd still be treated like this. What was she like before being locked up here? At another location, both the actor and the showman were present there. He exclaimed that he hadn't expected the royal capital's architecture to be like this. Looks like tomorrow's performance must be cancelled. Surveying the surroundings, the actor wondered what caused abnormal weather inside the great structure. The showman didn't know either. Who knows? I just want the rain to stop soon. We don't have much time left for the show. At the same time, Wit received news. She has to leave in 3 days, she sighed, unable to help it. I travel with the troupe, he pleaded urgently. Can't you stay? For me. The corner of her mouth curled up slightly. Curiously, she asked, do you say that because you like me, or because you crave deeper connections? Wit answered honestly. Both. Both are true, she probed. Then what do you have that's worth me staying for? He stammered. Skills. Cunning. But that wasn't what Irina wanted seemingly. There's nothing more to discuss. Wit bragged. I also have life points. Portraits can earn a lot of life points. She bluntly replied. I don't lack life points. Out of options, he took out his trump card. Okay. There's something I can tell you. It hasn't happened yet. But it's certain. Her patience was reaching its limit. Don't beat around the bush. Just say it. Wit boasted. I'm about to be promoted into the hierarchy, gaining the right to wear the honor band. But Irina still seemed unconvinced. Are you sure? He became more assertive. Of course, next week our school will promote. And I need someone to know the procedure to replace my position. That person can only be me. Hearing that, she soothed him sweetly. Can you manage everything here? Yes, he said. Then look forward to it. Back with Herrick. He was still confiding. I plan to take all the life points earned from paintings and petition the chief to improve your living conditions. At least stop serving recycled excrement as food. I don't mean to mock you eating feces. I mean, even if treated, it's still feces. That's not right. Overall, I want to gradually improve your survival conditions, maybe even win you chances for sane activity, like prisoners who are allowed certain privileges. That example probably wasn't very good either. Seeing the space quiet, he thought they might have left, and it was safe to go back. I'll go to the main control room to close her chamber goodbye. If my proposal passes, I'll come visit you. Finished, Herrick prepared to leave. Meanwhile, inside the chamber, she slowly opened her eyes. It seemed her health was beginning to recover. On the carriage, the showman spoke. Tio Na, my famous actress Tio Na, you finally left me. The actor was curious. Karis isn't here. Did he stay in the capital too? He was sad, and left the troupe, but it seems he went to another village. However, the showman didn't understand. Someone said we should stay a few more days. If Tio Na regrets and returns, she could find us. He comforted them. Calm down. She won't come back. Besides, we must hurry. If we're late, we might not make it. Night fell. At this time, Herrick had just finished his work, completed all the paintings. Though it was after hours, he still had to see the chief to check maybe he'd be there. His mood improved. The chief is reasonable. He should approve my proposal, right? It's the first time I approached the chief voluntarily. I wonder if he'll praise me for working late. Looking at that door, he guessed someone was inside. It seemed the chief was working late too. Herrick stuck his head in and called, Chief. At that moment, the man was frantically torturing a blood serf, without mercy. A perverse smile still spread across his face. The girl's whole body was utterly broken. Suddenly the chief shouted, Herrick, come in. The door was open. Herrick entered inside as well. He interrogated him. You've seen everything, haven't you? A heap of scrap papers lay scattered across his desk, the chief continued. You've seen everything, haven't you? He even warned. Young man, loosen up one day. You'll have to go through these things too. Look at this blood serf, she's beautiful. But, no matter how you treat her, she shows no reaction at all. Herrick's whole body trembled violently. Why? Why? The chief squeezed her face and sneered. Because she arrived here a year ago. Prolonged confinement, and the drugs shattered her mind. She's completely lost any response to external stimuli. The high officials seem to have grown bored of blood serfs who don't move, like corpses. Therefore, the newly arrived blood serfs are the prized ones. They retain some consciousness, and can recover normally once awakened. They feel pain, cry out, resist. Despair officials prefer that kind. It's more entertaining for them. He had long harbored a question. I ask, why must this be done? Hearing this, the man laughed maniacally. I manage them. It's my prerogative. As long as it doesn't affect the church's use, I can handle them however I like. His face showed extreme self-satisfaction. Moreover, by letting these blood serfs live, we're their benefactors, their experiences are their repayment. Herrick continued to tremble uncontrollably. The man only curled a mocking smile. Only after a while did he speak. I know you. Your name is Luminder. The chief leaned in to probe. Luminder is a high-ranking noble. If he was sent here, his family must have abandoned him, right? Are you willing to accept that? Moreover, he kept egging him on. Now I'll give you a chance to prove them wrong. Through these portraits, those lords can pick the playthings they want without showing their faces. You brought them these, and only you can. Use that as a platform and you'll keep climbing. You'll prove your family's previous decision wrong. You might even surpass every member of your family, making them proud of you. Herrick recoiled in fear. He exhaled heavily. Exhausted, the old man squinted at him in displeasure. Then the man smiled again. Well, at this hour coming to see me, are you here to give me the portrait? Herrick was too terrified to speak, stammering. I. He hid the stack of paintings. Not finished yet. Some parts are rough, I still need to refine details. The chief looked very pleased. Good, that's the attitude I want. He hurriedly asked permission. I'll be going now. Just then the man called him back. Wait, Herrick turned to look. The chief shoved something into his hand and said, You forgot this. The room door slammed shut. Herrick hugged the stack of paintings and stepped out. His pace quickened. Herrick ran. He bolted, intent only on leaving this place. Suddenly, Herrick tripped over his own feet. His papers scattered chaotically into the air. He fell face first to the ground. Herrick struggled to get up. Then, unable to bear it, he vomited. The recent scene had become a psychological ghost for him. Afterwards, he grabbed his steel cap. He put it back on his head. Suddenly Herrick noticed something. He stared at the pile of paintings strewn on the ground. Herrick picked up one painting. He told himself inwardly, I will definitely save her. The next morning, Wit had also come to clock in. He greeted cheerfully. Good morning, little brother Herrick. At that moment Herrick said, Wit, I want to report the chief. It's true the chief is exploiting sick blood serfs for transactions. Hiring me to paint their images lets those leaders choose without appearing in person. But Wit didn't want to hear further and cut him off. All right, calm down. After Wit heard the whole story, Herrick was completely shocked. What, you already knew? He lectured. You must know our position's rules don't ban using blood serfs for play. As long as you don't kill them, you can do what you like besides. They're not that easy to kill anyway. Only Herrick disagreed with that view. Those noble leaders can buy services outside. So why pick these pitiful people, Wit thought. You clearly don't understand. Can ordinary people and blood serfs be the same? The ability to play with blood serfs exists only here, so just pretend you don't know. If you ruin these lords' pleasures we can't bear the consequences. His whole body felt drained. How could this be? One person drags me into it. Another tells me to pretend ignorance. Why do you all feel no remorse? Hearing this, Wit jumped forward to question him. You say the chief tried to recruit you? Herrick nodded. Yes, painting the portraits was to make it convenient for them to choose. That's why they told me to draw. Seeing that, he honestly replied, I didn't know about this. Even though he knew nothing, he still told him everything. Besides, now they prefer newly arrived patients who still have consciousness, just to enjoy the pleasure of tormenting them. The more he heard, the more stunned he became. The chief didn't tell me any of this. How could they be like that? Herrick agreed. Yes, how could those people be so cruel? But unlike him, Wit was upset because, wasn't he supposed to be chosen as the successor? Why weren't these things told to him? Herrick couldn't believe his ears and cried out. What? He glared bitterly. It's because of you. All because you came. Herrick hurriedly explained. What are you saying? That's not the point. However, none of his words landed. Wit shouted. That's the point. Because you're a noble, you're more exploitable than me. So the chief wants to recruit you to take his place. Herrick couldn't have imagined it. This is madness. You're beyond saving. Committing inhuman acts with no remorse, aren't you afraid of divine punishment? He sneered. It seems the chief doesn't tell you everything. Do you know? The existence of blood serfs is entirely a favor granted by the gods. These words provoked him. What do you mean? Explain it to me. Wit pushed his hand away, his whole body radiating killing intent. Drop it. I have no obligation to answer you. You don't even understand the nature of the empire. How are you different from common trash? Praying to the gods for protection. Truly, a family's disgrace has arrived here. Herrick couldn't believe it. All of it was so corrupt. There was no point in saying more. He trudged away. I'm feeling unwell. I'll go home first. Wit shouted from behind. Come on, it's still work hours. Wow. Used to pretending to work overtime and now, this no more pretense, right? Afterwards, he decided to strike as well. I'm out too, let. Whoever wants the job take it. He returned home. He stared at the paintings he had drawn. Then, unable to contain his emotions, he pulled them all down. Herrick's hands crumpled the paper until it felt like it would tear. He blamed himself. I planned to wait until she regained consciousness to show her. Now it's too late. I'm sorry. Herrick lit a fire and burned the painting. The flames quickly consumed the drawing. The fire reduced it to cold ashes. The next day, the chief was present at the headquarters. He asked after him. Herrick, you've been working here a while. Are you adapting? Wit hasn't been bringing people here lately, has he? He lied to cover for his friend. No, chief. He hasn't brought anyone. The chief asked again. The task I assigned you, is it completed? Herrick replied coldly. Yes, chief. It's all done. He nodded as he looked at the drawings on the table. The chief praised them. Not bad, but regrettably, though there are many male blood serfs, this batch doesn't even have a single female. Is that so? Hearing the chief say this, Wit flinched. He replied tersely. Yes, chief. There aren't any. He sighed. Then there's nothing to be done. Suddenly Wit shouted, "Wait, Chief, Chief, Herrick is lying." The man narrowed his eyes in surprise. "What are you trying to say?" Wit was ready to betray his friend. "A few days ago I saw one of his paintings with a female in it." The chief stepped forward, puzzled. "There's no female in this painting, how do you explain that?" Wit assumed a righteous air. "Herrick is an artist. He can invent people, he must have fabricated that piece." The man turned to interrogate him. "Is that true, Herrick?" He hurriedly shook his head. I didn't." But Wit wouldn't let it go. "He did. I saw it. It was a short-haired girl. The image stuck with me. And I even noted the number. The number was 001216. A curious look crossed the chief's face. "You say a young woman," he recounted proudly. "Yes, Chief. The number matches a blood-served compartment, she must be in that berth." He stepped closer and asked, "Herrick, what do you think? Shall we go check that compartment?" Meanwhile, Wit butted in awkwardly. "Chief, we can directly inspect that compartment." The chief found it agreeable and agreed. "Let's go take a look. And if you recall anything about the drawings, tell me at any time." The three of them went to that compartment. Wit accused, "Number 001216 is in there." The man entered calmly. The chief prompted, "Herrick, let's go through there too." Thinking he had it in the bag, Wit became arrogant. By deceiving the chief, even a noble can't be trusted anymore. He was elated inwardly. Sure, the chief's position would be his. The chief ordered, "Wit, open the chamber." A group of Wit people stood in front of a blood slave compartment. The chief officer couldn't help but be suspicious. "Witter, is this the young woman you mentioned?" He was also stunned when he saw that blood slave. Impossible. Why is it wrong? Wit froze. The identification number also didn't match. Suddenly, he pointed at that blood slave and shouted, "I know it. Surely the person inside has been switched." Wit shifted his finger toward Herrick. "Herrick, your trick won't fool me," he said loudly. "Chief officer, I request to open all chamber doors to find that short-haired girl." The man looked at Wit with disappointment. "Witter, your thinking is wrong. He couldn't have swapped the blood slave," he asserted firmly. "Why? Transporting one person should be easy to confirm." The chief officer turned and walked. "Come with me. I'll tell you why." He knocked on an empty cylindrical compartment. Wit was doubtful. An empty chamber. "What do you want to do?" A smile showed at the corner of the chief officer's eyes. "Witter, you go in." He was stunned. "Huh. No good. That's where the blood slaves are kept," he said calmly. "Then I'll go in and demonstrate for you." Wit immediately waved his hand to stop him. No need. Let me." He pressed his lips and reluctantly entered the cylindrical compartment. The chief officer ordered, "Herrick, close the chamber door." He immediately obeyed. "Yes, sir." Surprise, mixed with astonishment, showed in Wit's eyes. He was puzzled. "What is going on?" the man asked Wit. "Understand," the chief officer continued. "If the corresponding blood slave enters a compartment, the door can't close and an alarm will sound." Thoughts stirred in his mind. Could it be that I really misidentified her? Someone suddenly spoke from behind, making Wit's hair stand on end. "Witter, how will you deal with a failed accusation?" Then the chief officer laughed heartily. "Don't be so anxious. Go to the main control room first. You two sort this out yourselves," he continued. "From now on, I handle the paperwork and other matters." The chief officer's tone suddenly took on unusual seriousness. "I'm about to be promoted. Tomorrow is my last external duty assignment while I'm in office." His gaze shifted to him. "Herrick, you'll go on tomorrow's mission too. There are things you need to understand." Jealousy began to rise in Wit. Is this old man planning to give his position to him? Herrick avoided the chief officer's gaze. "Sorry, chief officer. I can't go." He was surprised. "What?" he hurriedly explained. "I've had joint problems recently and can't go out for long." The chief officer then turned to Wit. "Fine. Then Witter, you'll go with me tomorrow," he answered without hesitation. "Yes, chief officer." He turned to leave. "Those matters. Later let Witter tell you," Wit shouted. "I'll do that, chief officer." Everything settled. The wine glass was refilled. He took the glass from Irina's hand. Although the process had some issues, the outcome was good. Wit swirled his glass. "After completing this mission, the chief officer position will be mine." She clinked glasses with Wit. "Is this the external mission you mentioned?" He was very pleased. "Yes. You remembered everything we joked about before." Irina smiled softly. "Of course. I took your words seriously, and remembered them." Wit raised his glass and drained it. He spoke. "Little Na, we've known each other so long but never got close. Consider today a celebration. Let's." Suddenly Wit froze. She loosened her dress strap. "Okay." Irina threw her arms around his neck. Her voice was seductive. "Want to come inside?" Wit began to lose reason. "Yes." Irina was utterly alluring. "Then come here." Elsewhere, Herrick was busy at work. He sighed in relief. "Good. It's all installed." Herrick looked up at the blotched walls. "It's ready. Tomorrow when they go out, we'll rescue them." He admired the view outside the window. then planned to leave the capital and start a new life far from them. After a while, Herrick went down the stairs. He put his eyes to the scanner. Herrick, carrying the file, slowly stepped in. He thought, "Don't let Witter notice anything unusual about me." Cold sweat ran down Herrick's brow. Is it odd to carry a backpack? But taking it off now would draw attention. The door beside him suddenly swung open. The chief officer appeared behind the door. "Witter, get ready to go." Herrick cautiously glanced at Wit. Seeing he didn't respond, he asked, "What are you doing?" The man stepped closer to Herrick. "You will be in charge of a batch of blood slave chambers," he asked in surprise. "What?" The chief officer chuckled. "Our external mission is transporting blood slaves. Look, all the ID numbers are here. I originally planned to take you on this run." Herrick stared at the file the man had handed him. "These people are all." The chief officer turned and ordered, "Once you're done, rendezvous with me." Herrick stammered. "Chief officer," he straightened and raised his voice. "Please take me along on this mission." The man frowned. "What? Your joint doesn't hurt anymore?" "But switching people now would be unfair to Witter." Herrick pleaded urgently. "Please, please take me with you." The chief officer smiled. "Don't be anxious. Fine. Both of you go." A tadpole was leisurely catching mosquitoes. Suddenly, a shadow passed over it. With a thud, a heavy object fell. The tadpole's eyes bulged in shock. A procession of robots marched forward with stiff regularity. Behind the mountain range in the forest, the group slowly moved. The chief officer sat back in his chair at ease. Herrick pondered. "We've been out of the capital for a while now. Where are we headed?" He recalled the man's words. "I manage them. That's my right. As long as it doesn't affect the cult's usage, I can do as I wish." Herrick gritted his teeth. If it doesn't affect the cult's usage, what do they want to take them for? The two leaders suddenly halted, pausing their advance. The chief officer looked up with curiosity. He pressed the pause button on the controller. The robots behind immediately collapsed to their knees. He stepped forward to report. "Chief officer, there's a fallen tree blocking the road ahead." The man barked aggressively. "Lead people to clear it quickly." "What's the point of telling me?" The group quickly moved the branches aside. He mocked in imitation. "Hurry, and lead people to clear it. What good is telling me?" He sighed. "Fine. Aren't we always the ones doing the hard work?" He snapped. "Those two armored lackeys of his could handle this in minutes. Yet he insists we do it." Suddenly he sneered. "How long will you keep chopping? Swap with me." Saying that, he stepped forward and drew the pistol at his waist. He pulled the trigger to cock the gun. In a flash, a burst of force tore through the air. He barked, "Don't waste gunfire up here, you idiot." He was excited. "Isn't this very effective? Giving the three of us guns was so we could use them," he boasted. "Our mission isn't to go into battle killing enemies. Weapons like this won't be used, so we probably never had a chance to use them anyway." Suddenly, a spear whistled past his face. The other two stared in astonishment. Then not one, but dozens of spears flew straight at them. Caught unprepared, both were shot like a beehive. A man squinted and watched. He shouted loudly, "The gunman is down. Forward. Move up." At this, the crowd roared. "Charge. Kill. The cult dogs." The group in front was quickly surrounded. The chief officer sprang up. "It's an ambush," Herrick said gravely. "What's going on?" A spear silently sliced through the air toward him. With a clang, it struck his mask and shattered. He roared, "Witter, kill them all." The chief officer frowned. "Witter." Suddenly, he glared at the man. Herrick asked in puzzlement, "What are you doing?" The chief officer was stunned. "What are you standing there dazed for?" A small knife was quietly produced. Before he finished speaking, the knife was already pressed against the chief officer's belly. He flinched in surprise. The man panted with difficulty. "You." He slowly removed his mask. "You're not him." At the same time, Raina panicked. "Witter," she screamed. "Where is he? Where is he? Come here quickly." The mask was flung to the ground. The chief officer trembled and stammered. "Who is it? Where's Witter?" Irina curled her lip and said, "You find him." She calmly reached up and plucked out her own eye. Then she quickly shoved it into his mouth, loudly. "Now it'll be yours." Irina angrily kicked him away. She looked down with haughty contempt. The chief officer growled, "You filthy worms. Run if you dare. The cult will hunt you to death." At that moment, in the abbey, a bishop's candle suddenly went out. The nun froze, her breath catching. A moment later, she immediately left. The maid hurried after her. "Sister Superior. Sister Superior." A gunshot rang out piercingly. His head blew open, blood spattering. The blonde cheered excitedly. "Little Na, this thing really works." Herrick turned his head in puzzlement. "Little Na?" He quickly realized it. Irina lunged at Herrick with murderous intent. He called out loudly, "He's dead." The attendant looked down. The deceased was the custodian of blood slave storage, No. 71, currently on an external mission. The exact cause of death cannot be confirmed, he thought. And right while on an external mission, better report to Master Bakken. The little birds twittered. Bulkin slept soundly among beautiful women. A bell suddenly chimed. The birds, startled, flapped away. He croaked, "Go in," he respectfully said. Although 2 knights accompanied the mission, the chief officer has suddenly died. Should we send someone to check? Seeing no reply, he looked up. Master Bulkin. He frowned and signaled silence. Wait a bit longer. Meanwhile, in the forest, Herrick faced off against Irina. He spotted her sharp dagger streaking toward him. Irina coldly drove it into Herrick. He swung back, stumbling several steps. With no chance for Herrick, she spun and kicked him squarely in the chest. Herrick's large frame was hurled and crashed to the ground. The blonde fired continuously with excitement. Head. The muzzle flash struck his head, left a flare, then died out. He remarked regretfully, too solid. Irina shouted orders. You go. Take this one to me. The blonde hesitated, but she snarled. Stop babbling. Take the blood slave chamber away before the cult's reinforcements arrive. Herrick was somewhat surprised. The bell rang once more. He immediately reported, the victim is Witter, 28, currently custodian of blood slave storage No. 71. The one who gouged out the left eye is suspected to be a famous actress from the Crimson Opera troupe. He frowned. Storage. No. 71. Could it be? He nodded. Probably the actress disguised as a subordinate who killed the chief officer halfway through. The drawbridge was slowly being raised. He pondered why she would do that. Everyone knows the consequences of opposing the cult. He sighed. Indeed. Since I took office, this is the first time I've seen a civil servant killed, Bulkin said as he walked. Sister Superior, you said 3 people went on that mission, right? He replied. Yes. Usually the chief officer takes 1 subordinate on missions, why bring 2 this time? He curled his lips. Interesting. Bulkin emphasized, the 3rd person may be the key. Back in the forest, Herrick slowly rose to his feet. His massive figure exuded solemn dignity. Irina looked at him seriously. Herrick stumbled. I surrender. She looked at him suspiciously. He hurriedly said, there's someone in the blood chamber you want to save, right? The cult are the villains. You are the good ones. The blonde perked up at that, intrigued. Irina calmly flipped the control switch back on. The robots behind them rose with a rumble. Irina put her blindfold back on. You're right. I have someone to save. But I still can't trust you. So I'll entrust you a little. Herrick shrugged. Fine, as long as we can get away from the cult. The blonde asked curiously. Little nah. Why not free Big Brother Nino? Don't you want to see him? She snapped. I do, but that would slow us down. We must finish the ritual before the cult arrives if we have any chance, Herrick asked with curiosity. Where are you going? What ritual? Irina answered coldly. Sorry, I still can't trust you. Elsewhere, a frantic knocking thundered through the building. The man sleeping frowned irritably. He angrily opened the door and shouted. What's wrong now? You've nearly smashed the door to pieces. He frowned. There's a pursuit mission, and we 3 are needed. He snapped. I'm resting. Why bother me? He sighed. Who told us to meet that starlet? Feki froze in panic. Huh. Is that woman crazy? Did she really do it? He replied nonchalantly. That's why we're sent to verify, he urged. Hurry up. Our reward is running off at full speed, he shouted. We'll go first. Feki spun and slammed the door. All right, go, 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 I'll catch up. A moment later, he squinted on the bed, sleep a bit more. Inside the forest, the 2 subordinates were frantically tracking and chasing the trail. Suddenly, he halted. Around him were the bodies of comrades strewn across the ground. He considered that the enemy had set an organized ambush. He looked around. These men died on the outer edge of the battlefield. Really unlucky. The blonde stared wide-eyed. He reported, There's 1 more stretch of road ahead. I'll leave men here to rendezvous with Kalas and ambush the cult's soldiers. Irina cautioned them to be careful. With that, she departed first. The blonde watched thoughtfully. Of course I know to be careful, but will it help? Meanwhile, Feki still had his eyes tightly shut. Seconds later, he suddenly opened his eyes wide. Then he unconsciously sat, bolt upright. Feki mumbled sleepily. Oh, should have breakfast. Irina calmly left with Herrick. He was a bit curious. Weren't everyone fleeing together? How can they leave them behind? Won't the slow-moving main force be pursued? Herrick reminded. The chamber can change forms. Have your people carry dispersed chamber units to run, so they won't be easily chased. I'll fetch people to bring them back for you, she shouted angrily. Listen, we do not intend to flee, he asked again. Why? Irina said coldly. You who work for the cult should know their methods. Planning to run only gets you hunted down and slaughtered, she said slowly. Only resistance offers hope. At that moment, in a room, an empty stomach began to complain. He dragged himself out of bed, slowly found the pan. Meanwhile, in the forest, he started grumbling. Where is that Feki? At his speed, he should have caught up by now. He snorted. Good if he doesn't show. Fewer people to split the reward. The rustling behind them grew louder. Suddenly, a huge spear hurtled toward them. It shattered the moment it struck the armor. In an instant, a group burst from the bushes. Kill. The 2 boys lunged forward together. He quickly grabbed their heads. Without much talk, he forced their heads together. At that very moment, at home he cracked 2 eggs. The hot oil sizzled, the attackers refused to retreat, and yelled, "Fire." He calmly watched them attack pointlessly. He mocked. "Fools! Using flintlock pistols to strike our heavy armor," he sneered. "Your demands are too high. Civilians don't know this kind of thing." Everyone panicked and stepped back a few paces. Seconds later, he drew his gun and fired back continuously. The eggs were just cooked. He slowly sprinkled pepper. He said leisurely, "What a waste. Watch me conserve energy and ease your burden." Gunfire suddenly erupted from behind. He bent low, gripping the sword tightly. Immediately he sprang up and leapt at them. The sound of chopping meat rang out rhythmically. He was amused. "I know this type too." The boy trembled in panic as the man seized him. Now, the sound of tearing bread broke the silence. He murmured, "This one's yours." The other smiled and nodded. Interesting. His hand was huge, compared to the boy's small head. The boy gave a hard twist, and the jar of strawberry jam opened. Blood-red jam slowly flowed out. Feki looked hungry. "It's ready." The plate of egg and ham sandwiches looked delicious. The attackers were almost all killed by the two of them. He murmured, "This is bliss." "So good," he pondered. Bliss without challenge is meaningless. He had no idea he had become a target. A head hiding in the tree shot a precise arrow. It flew and lodged into his body. He howled in pain. "My eye." Seeing this, he raged, raised his gun and shouted, "Damn it." The blonde suddenly widened his eyes. In an instant, a figure flashed down like lightning. A fist crashed straight into his head. Callus looked down sternly from above. The blonde shouted excitedly, "Callus!" Callus decisively dove down and smashed the gun. He cried out in pain, "My eye, my eye." He frowned and swung his arm high into the air. The man behind struggled to stand and jeered, "Can that guy even lift that big hammer?" Callus spun and slashed his sword across. The man quickly grabbed it to block the blow. The two gritted their teeth and strained against each other. Suddenly another arrow flew at the man. The blonde regretted. "Damn." He pulled his arm back behind him. With a burst of force he rammed his body into the man. The man struggled to hold his ground and brace his feet. Their hands gripped each other tightly. Both stared with wide and narrow eyes, teeth clenched, facing off. He curled his lip and laughed. "Not bad. Finally, someone interesting." A young lad wiped his mouth with a cloth. Feki's face showed weariness. Idle time is always short. In a blink, it's back to work. He wearily put on his hat. Feki pressed the visor of the helmet down hard. He took up the weapon. "Let's go, Mide." Feki's hand gripped it firmly. The engines began to whir to life. Feki lifted into the air. The ground left behind in a cloud of dust. He darted swiftly through the air. Feki streaked across the dense forest. Below the trees, Callus was fighting with all his might. He marveled. "Such strength. This body is unlike our empire's people. You must have Maleta blood, right?" The battle continued to rage. The blonde perched on a branch with a spyglass. "What just flew by?" The armored man spoke. "Looks like Feki has arrived. There's no blood chamber here." "That bastard didn't even stop." Kalus growled. What passed was pursuit troops. He spun around and shouted, "Keeping them is useless. Run." The blonde looked stunned. "What?" Kalus's hand was squeezed hard, until blood spurted. Yet he worried about others. He tried to flee but was stabbed down by the man in golden armor, trying to run. The man swung his sword again toward the blonde. A corner of the forest was left in ruins, birds scattering in all directions. Elsewhere, pod chambers lay lined up on the ground. An entire empty field was covered with pod chambers. Beside one pod chamber stood a shattered stone statue. Arena pressed a touch device. Another pod chamber was placed on the rocky outcrop. Hera couldn't help but be wary. Where is this place and what do they intend to do? The legs outside the pod suddenly retracted. She didn't answer him and continued her work. The green icons on the pod screen turned blue. A stream of bright red blood suddenly gushed out. All the pod chambers were the same. The blood gradually stained the ground red. Herrick followed after her. He asked again, "What did you do? Is that blood pouring from the chamber?" Getting no reply, Herrick grew irritated. "Weren't you going to save them? What is this now? Answer me." Seeing Irina still silent, he shoved her arm hard. The white-haired man shouted angrily, "Enough messing around." She pointed at the pod chambers. "The person I want to save is only one, and blood slaves are meant to be used like this." Herrick softened his voice. "But you are bleeding them." Irina grew more curt. "What we need is blood." He showed no change. "Blood is the ritual you people spoke of earlier." She pointed at Herrick. "Stop acting like you know nothing. Doesn't your church always do this?" He stood frozen. "No, I didn't know. No one told me. I always." She cut him off. "Their name is blood slaves. The commodity you use is called blood points. Haven't you grasped the meaning of blood to this nation?" He recalled every word of the bald man. "I manage them. It's my privilege. As long as it doesn't interfere with the church's use, I can handle it however I want." And Wit's words, "It seems the chief doesn't tell you everything. You know, the existence of blood slaves is granted by the gods." Herrick fell into thought. "So, what they are is..." Irina faced him, regarding faith and sham prayers. "Blood is the real commodity that can be traded with the gods." She calmed her tone. Only by trading with the gods can we gain the power to resist the church. The icons on the pod screen shifted to orange. Herrick objected. No. That's not right, he shouted at Irina. So much blood has flowed. Where is the power? Do you really understand how to trade? She clicked her tongue once and fell silent. He couldn't contain his frustration seeing her like that. The people in the chambers are nearing their limit. Stop now. If you continue, they'll die. Irina kicked Herrick hard. Shut up. The kick sent him collapsing. The god hasn't answered because the blood is still insufficient. As long as they can resist the church, they may die. I don't care. Herrick lay still, but spoke, giving you one last chance. He suddenly lifted his head to warn. Stop, or you'll regret it. Seeing her indifferent, Herrick shouted louder. You'll regret this. By now, he was utterly despairing. Tears streamed down his face. Looking up at the sky, Herrick suddenly saw something. Irina touched a pod. Nino, sorry to keep you waiting. I'll release you now. He tried to warn him. Be careful. Her eyebrows knitted tightly. A sword slammed into the pod. Fecky's foot slowly touched down. He waved. Hello again, Miss Great Star. Seeing the blood spread all over the ground, Fiki exclaimed. He looked at the blood. The liberator of the blood slaves has arrived. That's not good. Irina frowned tightly and said nothing. He glanced down at Herrick below. Fecky waved. Hey down there, those chains can't hold you, can they? He shouted. Break free, and then kill that ant beside you. Seeing the two behind begin to tremble, he reassured them. Don't listen to him. I don't know how to kill. While Fecky was off guard, she leapt up with a knife. Fortunately, he reacted in time and dodged. Fecky landed easily on the ground. He looked up at Irina. Don't act so quick to strike. I've danced with you before, don't you remember? She charged again. Damn church dogs. Fecky used his sword to try to block. Irina's knife slashed across the screen of one pod. Realizing it, she frowned. He propped his chin and said, This blood slave means a lot to you. Are you doing all this to save him? Irina snapped. None of your business. Fecky gripped his sword. Of course it matters. He pulled the sword from the ground. If he's the one in your heart. Fecky slammed down, sending a pod flying into the air. I'll get jealous. He spun and lunged toward that pod. Fecky's hand grabbed a corner of the pod tightly. The engines behind him started to power up. Herrick was stunned by Fecky's action. He immediately broke the chains that bound him. The two behind Herrick, though trembling, warned aloud. Don't move. He calmly turned his head. May I borrow something from you? Above. The corner of Fecky's mouth twitched into a smile. Looks like I guessed right. Irina immediately lunged to seize it. The pod was tossed up into the air once more. It spun in midair. He shot forward toward it. Then Fecky hurled his sword. Too slow. The sword seemed to tear through the air. It plunged into the pod, shattering its surface. She stood rooted, motionless as if struck dumb. The figure inside the pod gradually became visible. Her eyes half closed, her face emerging behind the broken glass. Fecky. Puzzled. Woman. Irina was also surprised. Who? Her body slowly fell out of the pod. She fell down to Irina's stunned gaze. Her eyes opened wider. Herrick quickly ran over. Don't be afraid. I'll catch you. She listened to the voice that had just spoken. This sound is. Suddenly her eyes widened. She happily spread her arms. It's you, right? The one who called me shit-eater. He froze. She heard it. She immediately hugged Herrick. I'm here. Her body slammed hard against his iron armor, making his joints feel like they'd shatter. She let out a cry of pain. He covered her with a cloth. That's good. I caught you. You're trembling from pain. Maybe I shouldn't have. Your body is much firmer than the ground, Herrick asked. Did you say anything just now? She pushed him away. No, it's finally over. I'm so happy. She patted his head, smiling. So good. Really good. You're so kind. Herrick looked at her and thought, this personality is so lively. Nothing like I imagined. He grabbed her wrist. Don't touch anymore. The danger isn't cleared yet. Where is the person who was in this chamber? She blinked in confusion and looked back. Huh? Irina shouted angrily. Where is my Nino? Why are you in there? You were supposed to be inside. That pod had been smashed to pieces by Fecky's sword. The sky was gradually turning into deep night. Herrick knocked lightly on the door. Inside, the blue-haired girl still lay motionless. He removed each ring, pinning her down. Sorry. Herrick carried her outside. He had hoped to bring good news when they met again, but so much happened instead. He muttered as he walked. But I have a temporary plan. You need it. Herrick took her to another pod. To change hiding places. He placed her inside that pod. Herrick wondered. Why can't they swap people? Why not? He began to ponder. Witter said the chamber's body is a reuse cycle. After a chamber is emptied, it's sent elsewhere for a new person. So it should be possible to swap people. Thoughts stirred in Herrick. Maybe the chamber records the identity of the new person. Like the first time I entered the storage, he kept brooding. Damn it. Do I have to gouge out eyes or what? Herrick's mind grew chaotic. No. Blood slaves with cognitive disorders can't always open their eyes, and I haven't heard that losing eyes is compensated another way. So we must find what sick blood slaves share, he whispered, and the characteristics vary a bit. Hearing this, Irina pointed and shouted. When they collected them, I had people verify and even checked your drawings. This blood slave chamber was clearly Nino's. Why is it her? She demanded. Where did my Nino go? He made a condition. Stop. Make all the blood slave chambers stop drawing blood. Irina guessed something. Could it be you took him? Herrick interrupted. Stop drawing blood. I'll take you to his chamber. She ground her teeth. You. Feki stepped forward and drew his sword. He spoke. So, the person she likes isn't a woman. The pod's screen suddenly turned red. Irina sank to her knees. It's over. The door of the pod containing Nino opened. She wailed miserably. Save him. Aren't you the one who manages the blood slaves? Save him for me. Herrick clasped his hands. No. At this stage, if you're in the pod and accept emergency treatment, there's only a 20% survival rate. Here you'll surely die. Irina screamed in pain. Nino. Feki laughed loudly. So that's how it is. He leaned against his sword. This is different from your staged act. Doesn't it feel good to kill your prince with your own hands? Feki dragged his sword forward. True to form, you swapped people only to have them slaughter each other. Herrick spoke. No, the swap was a coincidence. He bowed his head, his voice tinged with ambiguity. Is that so? But as far as I know, the blood slave pod can't swap people at will. How did you manage this? The blue-haired girl smiled faintly. That's our trick. Since you asked, I'll show you. He turned to her. You're acting too cocky. Besides, this doesn't concern you. She pointed to the barcode on the back of her neck. The pod's identification all depends on this. Feki, puzzled, barcode? She snorted and rubbed the barcode with her hand. He asked again. Can the code be forged? She replied nonchalantly. Just use a marker and solvent. It's an easy trick. Feki frowned slightly. My people, tell me. What's your name? He answered at once. Herrick. His face darkened. Blood slave manager Herrick. What purpose did you have swapping blood slaves using your position? The blue-haired girl patted her chest. Of course I wanted to rescue myself, isn't that obvious? Herrick shouted. Stop talking. She didn't pay much attention. What's the harm? Feki pointed at him. Blood slave manager Herrick. Your crime. The blue-haired girl cut in. How shall we bargain? She pointed at Irina. I heard it in the pod. You like this stupid woman, don't you? A smile crossed her face. Why don't we make a deal? You take this woman and we won't make a fuss. No accusations. How about it? He fell silent without a word of objection. Her eyes still glistening, she shouted fiercely. You trash! Don't even dream! Irina's foot stepped into a pool of blood. She swung her knife wildly. I've sacrificed a huge amount of fresh blood to the god. I must use the god's power to kill you. The blue-haired girl, bewildered, pointed at her own face. You slaughtered so many people yourself, and call us trash. Herrick hurriedly stopped her. Say less. Feki suddenly spoke. My shining star. He took a step closer to Irina. Have you written the Concord document yet? She paused for a few seconds. Concord document, Feki continued. Sacrificing blood alone, without the Concord document. How would the god know what you want? Irina screamed. You lied to me. They never said a Concord document was needed. Only sacrifice here, he calmly replied. You were deceived, weren't you? But I don't hate foolish beauties. She clenched her hands. It can't be. Nino is dead. The blood slave is dead. The god must answer me. The blue-haired girl nudged Herrick. The deal probably failed. If they fight, we can slip away. Irina bowed her head. You won't die unjustly. Feki leaned on his sword. Don't pity the man she drained, that worthless piece. She grew even angrier. I won't let you insult him. Die for me. Suddenly, Irina was struck by a powerful force that drained the color from her face. Irina fell, rolling into the pool of blood. She lay motionless for a long while. Suddenly, Irina was utterly stunned. Before her now was Callus's severed head. The man in golden armor exhaled. A direct hit. Feki picked up Callus's head. Irina's tears quietly streamed down. He wondered. Why is there only one? When I flew here, I saw another archer. The men in golden armor remained indifferent. The archer was minced into paste by someone. Not easy to take. She froze, tears streaming down in rows. The golden armored man's foot stepped through the pool of blood. He inspected each pod, especially why blood slaves were transported here to have their blood released. Feki hugged Callus's head. These people heard something about blood from somewhere, and want to bargain with the god. Yet they don't even know the rights. The golden armored man grabbed Irina's hair and jerked her back. So that's the star. Doing this over an unattainable thing is foolish. He drew his sword to strike. Kill her regardless of what star she is. I must cut her down. He held Callus's head up before him. Then Feki intervened. Go. Leave one alive for the church to question. The golden armored man pointed. She wore the holy shroud in place of one of ours. What about the other who wore it? He pointed to another direction. Over there. The direction Feki indicated was where Herrick was hiding, behind the blood slave pods. Two fools thought I didn't see. The golden armored man suspected. The two, seeing them step out, the golden armored man exclaimed, There's a blood slave, not yet bled dry. He was about to recount. It's long to tell. He waved a hand to stop him. No need. We just need to finish the mission. The blue-haired girl whispered. Think fast. If this continues, they'll lock me back into a blood slave pod. Herrick's voice remained calm. Think long term. You're lucky not to have died this time. If you keep resisting, you'll end up eating shit again. The golden armored man was about to leave. Fine. If those to be killed are killed and those to be captured are captured, we can return. Feki called out. Wait, he questioned, like an interrogation. Where were the two people beside you then? You didn't kill them. The golden armored man snapped. What, doing this and running off? How will the church's reputation be preserved? Feki drew his sword. Don't worry. At my speed, even if they run far, I can catch them. He then continued across the dense forest. Below, two people rode chickens running toward them. The one behind laughed and asked, Hey, no one has chased us this far yet. Is it us? The youth immediately replied, Yes, yes. Let's run. Feki descended from nowhere and drove his sword through the two riders' bodies. Then, the golden armored man slowly took something down. Then he handed that item to Herrick. Control the blood slave pod and prepare to leave. Feki will likely return soon. He took it immediately. The pod door suddenly exploded. The surfaces of the other pods also began to crack. One by one, they all blew apart in an instant. The blonde man pointed at Herrick's face. What did you do? He flinched. I didn't do anything. The cloth covering one blood slave fell off. As the cloth fell, a skull was gradually revealed. A dry skeleton collapsed onto the blood-streaked floor. An eye popped out of its socket. Threads of blood spread rapidly across the ground. They crawled up the golden armored man's leg. He lifted his leg in disgust. Oh God, what is this? The blue-haired girl trembled in horror. How disgusting. The golden armored man waved his hands wildly. The blood threads had covered the ground, interspersed with skulls and skeletons. The pods gradually sank. Even the vehicle was slowly swallowed by the blood threads. Everything sank down. Herrick suddenly realized the ground was collapsed. The golden armored man ordered, Start the sprayer, quickly. The machine lifted him into the air. He was shocked it could haul the highest capacity, holy shroud. The blonde man looked down. My sword. Damn it. Irina suddenly burst into loud laughter. Her laughter turned eerie. The god answered me. The god answered me. The blue-haired girl still beamed. So that's it. If she defeated the pursuers, then I don't have to go back. He snapped her back to reality. What are you happy about? He scolded her. Have you forgotten? She only now looked stunned. It's over. The golden armored man was pulled back down to the ground. He cursed non-stop, bastard. Irina kept laughing loudly. The entire pod sank beneath the slime. Everything was swallowed completely without a trace. Feki stood on his sword, flying across the sky. He cast his eyes around. Suddenly something caught Feki's attention. Below was a large pit torn open in the forest. Where is this? A pink liquid had flooded an area of ground. The blue-haired girl was being submerged in the liquid. She screamed in despair. Suddenly, the liquid flowed off her body. Herrick remained calm. That's good. She's okay too. The golden armored man laughed aloud. I'm fine. Irina was surprised. Why am I out already? The blue-haired girl's face was not so happy. She's out. But, she looked at the scene and shouted, Where is this place? He tried to push himself up. Bastard, the hatch won't open. The blue-haired girl pointed at herself. I'm wrapped in some transparent layer. He began to notice too. It's on the holy shroud I wore, and these things are on that flesh as well, she continued. They're all moving in the same direction. The pink slime clung tightly to the wall. It slowly crawled up that wall, then advanced straight towards something lying in the center of the large pit. Herrick wondered. What is that? The blue-haired girl stared at it. An embryo. A fetus. The pink slime adhered to the object that looked like an embryo. The stone bricks around the embryo were gradually cracking. The embryo fell down. Threads of pink began to envelop it. The embryo grew increasingly rosy. He tilted his head. It's grown larger. It's a newborn. She frowned. Is it absorbing this flesh? Herrick looked at the blue-haired girl. It grew a bit more. No, rather it already grew. Her eyes never left the embryo. This is demonic. It might take our lives. The pink substances were gradually sticking to the embryo's body. Suddenly something grotesque appeared on the embryo. Over there, Feki stood before an empty pod. Only this tattered thing remained here. He looked across the large pit. The area seemed obliterated, including a section of ground. Then, Feki looked up at the sky. Could it be? The god answered her. The man in golden armor removed his iron helmet. I understand now. Another asked, Understand what? And you're still smiling. He kept grinning. The ritual succeeded. The other was dumbfounded. Huh. He looked blissful. The god is granting me power. Irina was also bewildered by his attitude. What is he saying? We pointed at another golden armored man. Don't you feel your body filled with power? If you're stuck and can't move, take your helmet off and feel it. The man immediately complied. It's clear. It's lighter now. The blue-haired girl waved her hands frantically. Really? Can you feel it? He looked at his hands. Yes. But how is this the god? He grinned widely. The god trapped us here to grant us power. Once our power is enough, We'll break free. So that's it. The other remained confused. This is too grotesque. Not like our god's ways. The Holy Blood Lord wouldn't do this. He hastily objected. Of course it's not the Holy Blood Lord, but so what? If it grants me power, then it's my god, she protested. No. You can't take it. This power is for me. I exchanged blood slaves for it. He laughed loudly. Thank you. Lucky you didn't write the offering. Irina pointed at his face and cursed. Bastard. I'll kill you. While they were arguing, something was rising up from the slime. He pointed. Look quickly. Our god has awakened. The other looked and saw the holy blood above. Its appearance could be called a dark god. A small hand was gradually emerging from the slime. Something was slowly rising up to the girl's astonishment. He was extremely excited. Come here. Come to me. It immediately turned its head toward him. Irina saw this and shouted too. Over here, come to me. He tried to get its attention. Over here. She refused to be outdone. Over here. The blue-haired girl began to feel uneasy. What is this? Are you kidding me? Seeing that grotesque thing approach her, he laughed loudly. It's coming. It's coming. Irina gritted her teeth. Why? He grew even more ecstatic. My master, you've finally come to me. A grotesque face faced his face. It opened its mouth and asked, Who are you? He didn't hesitate and replied, My name is Laser Cater, an infantry line soldier. The grotesque thing kept staring at him. Suddenly, a yellow liquid spurted from his neck. The smile on his face vanished. Replaced by extreme pain, something tightened around his throat, and he couldn't break free. Feki trudged forward. He muttered, Damn, unlucky. Mission failed, comrades gone, and it's a dark god that doesn't accept offerings. He felt uneasy. This happening with no clear cause could lead not just to blame but to investigation and detention. Feki had to take a risk. He could only gamble. The plan was to erase the evidence that I had been here. He hauled bodies and threw them into the pit, staging it as if he never received the mission notice. Feki stood at the pit's edge. Oh, great dark god, you must tell them they're dead. On the other side, Laser's eyes widened, mouth agape. The man beside him trembled in fear. That grotesque thing began to target him. He froze, his whole body shaking in terror. It tilted its head and asked him, Who are you? He clasped his hands earnestly. I am Wender. From now on I will worship you as my sole god and become your follower. He could not avoid the same fate as Laser. Sweat streamed down the blue-haired girl's forehead. It's coming this way. Is it going to take them one by one? Herrick lamented. What a painful way to die. Her fear welled up. What to do? Think fast. Damn it, think. He showed no fear. I still don't even know her name. Her brows knit slightly. Huh. You're playing this trick too. We're about to die, you know. Herrick avoided her gaze. So I plan to learn more about you before we die, she snapped. Am I not the one you were going to learn about when it's my turn? Do you have to make me say it again? He stammered. Sorry. The blue-haired girl looked at him with helpless eyes. She quickly turned away. You can call me Elise. And as for other things, I don't remember. Herrick wondered. Amnesia. Elise's expression suddenly sank. The earliest memory I can recall is being in the storage, the first time you spoke to me. He lowered his head. Sorry. I couldn't keep the promise I made then. A loud laugh rang out, cutting the atmosphere between them. Irina's mouth curled into a smile. How deliciously dead. As expected of the god I summoned, the grotesque thing moved close to her. Who are you? She shouted. Nah, Hapa. The blood slave offerings have awakened you. Let us join hands to wipe out the damn cult together. The grotesque thing tilted its head, studying Irina's face. Then suddenly it turned its head to another direction. As it moved away, she was strangled, strange fluid spilling from her mouth. The grotesque thing slowly advanced toward Ellis. Suddenly it opened its huge mouth and asked, Who are you? She pressed her lips together, sweat pouring down like rain. Herrick suddenly shouted, I am Helik. Lumendo. He slapped his hand on his chest. I despise any god who harms the people. I despise your divine ways. I will fight you to the end, even to death. Hearing that, she cursed under her breath. Idiot. What's the point of such nonsense? It's only a matter of sooner or later dying. The grotesque thing was drawn to Herrick's voice. While it wasn't looking, Elise's hand reached toward it. It cast a cold, sharp glance at her. Elise mustered all her courage and cried out, I am your mother. The murderous look in its eyes suddenly became dewy. He was also surprised by her action, huh? Elise embraced it. I am your mother. The slime slowly dissolved from its body. Mother. The slime withdrew, restoring the room to its original state. Herrick was astonished. My god, this truly is a miracle. Suddenly the slime returned, engulfing Elise, taking the parents back. Only half his face remained visible. Who? His eyes slowly opened. Elise's small figure appeared. That figure became increasingly clear. She bent over. Oh, you're awake. I have good news. The two of them appeared in the bottom of the deep pit. We're back home. Herrick tried to sit up. Is this real? We've survived and returned? Elise hesitated. Not just us. She lifted her skirt. A face gradually revealed itself. He was surprised. It's born. Herrick took a garment from his large bag. It's a bit big. It was meant for her. In the rush he couldn't find a bag, so he borrowed someone else's cloak. She read the letters on the shirt. Sandy Kate, he replied. That's the tailor shop that made this garment. Elise stood propping herself up. Your name is Sandy Kate. Herrick, helpless, just decide like that. She lifted the little girl. Don't you like it? Do you want her to take your surname? After all, you're the father. He immediately objected. What? No way, Elise continued. But Lumendo sounds too rustic. Herrick laughed loudly. Rustic? She answered. Keep the name Sandy Kate. Hey, what are you laughing at? Elsewhere, Fiki was lying on a bed, his eyes squeezed shut, muttering nonstop. I'm off duty, sleeping at home. Didn't get the notification. I'm off duty, sleeping at home. Didn't get the notification. I'm off duty, sleeping at home. For the moment. Sandy looked around awkwardly. Then the girl met the other person's gaze. Immediately, Sandy smiled brightly, her eyes curving into crescents. Elise wanted to rush to the girl and hug her. But a strong force stopped her. Herrick hurriedly shouted. Wait a moment. He stepped closer and asked softly. Are you really going to play the role of her mother? Although she was clever enough to get us out of danger then. Just play along calmly. What's the harm? Seeing this, Herrick growled irritably. Of course it matters, though she looks like a child for now. She is essentially an unknown evil deity. And if she discovers you deceived her, she will want to kill you. But Elise stubbornly refused to give in. She insisted on resisting, who says a foster mother isn't a mother. At this point he could only sigh in helplessness. Stop being clever. I'm not joking with you. Suddenly, Elise turned serious and scrutinized the other. But didn't forget to warn him. If we leave it and run, it'll get angry. We could very well die. Then Herrick became despondent. Clutching his head in despair. What should we do? I only planned to sneak her away to live a quiet life in a remote place. But now his voice faltered, the more Herrick thought. The more he realized the situation was shrouded in darkness. I work for the church but don't understand the true church. I thought the rebels were the good ones. But they do the same evil. And even the God I always worshipped wants to harm people to grant blessings. He's sinking deeper into his thoughts, and truly doesn't know what to do now. Suddenly Elise pulled him back to reality, shouting triumphantly, I am Herrick Lumendur. I despise any god who harms the people. I despise your god, I will fight you to the end. Even to death. A moment later Herrick hurriedly clapped a hand over her mouth. Don't speak like that anymore. Don't suddenly start talking like me. Elise saw he was calmer and teased with a smile. Of course you know how. Her hand rose into the air with determination. Elise cried out with hope. We must become the new gods. Herrick asked her doubtfully. Become gods. Elise didn't answer him directly but smiled foolishly. Scene shift. At the tall, densely packed buildings. Inside. The atmosphere was dark. Two small people knelt far off, while another sat high on the throne. Feki bowed tremblingly, daring only to steal a glance upward. Bolkin smiled benevolently, but his voice carried lethal intent. You mean to say no one told you about the mission yesterday? Sweat poured down his face as he stammered a report. Yes. I rested at home yesterday. I only learned when someone questioned me today. Then the soldier beside added on behalf of Feki. According to the gate guard's report yesterday, only 2 frontline soldiers left the city. Moments later, he quickly handed the notebook back to the servant beside Bolkin. The notebook was swiftly returned to him. That servant obediently said, Lord Bolkin, the investigative team has returned. This is the report they presented. He coldly ordered the 2 over there. All right. You may go. They obediently followed orders and turned to leave. Then the servant beside Bolkin spoke up. Just let him go like that. The other 2 had no reason not to inform him of the mission. There might be hidden motives. He still calmly reassured him. It's fine. Other troubles await him later. Bolkin suddenly snapped, the notebook shut, and, with a voice full of killing intent, called, Head Sister of the Nuns. Then he decisively ordered, Summon the High Temple's clergy. I want to meet them in the assembly hall. Scene shift. In a large room with only a 4-person table in the center, in the right corner. An elderly man and a voluptuous young woman waited calmly. On the other side sat 2 other men who looked anything but simple. Suddenly Bolkin shattered the quiet. Good afternoon, everyone. I've called you here about a very important matter. Let's not waste time. Please review the investigative report on the table first. An old man decisively cut him off. The 2 frontline soldiers who didn't return to their squad are confirmed missing. He is Magnus Lumendur, head of external affairs. Bulkin replied coldly. Unfortunately. That's correct. A purple-haired woman had a different thought. Although the troop's star is missing too. We can investigate the troop she was with. Even if they left the city before the incident, we can still trace their movements. She is Clara Oathspire, head of finance. This time, the white-haired man in a corner immediately spoke up in objection. Surveillance is impossible. Their carriage was changed to a floating crate, concealing the wheels. He is Zane Lionheart, head of defense. The gray-feathered raven with a hoarse voice asked him, "A floating crate is something only a few nobles have. Why would a theater troupe possess one?" That raven is Theodora Harmony, head of penance. Bulkin lowered himself respectfully and answered them, "My apologies. I watched their performance. It was a reward I granted them." In another corner, Theodora's servant silently observed the conversation. An unworthy thought arising. Accept it to avoid pursuit, so this fits the legend that refusing Lord Bulkin brings bad luck. Zane frowned, annoyed, and hurriedly countered Bulkin. The Imperial Blood Opera is not the focus. It's a state-sponsored troupe with a clean roster. That star only joined a month ago. Seemingly to assume that identity, he smiled and handed them a board. "Yes. Please review the final report." Bulkin calmly explained. "That bloodslave chamber and the disappearance site, where exactly is it? You haven't forgotten, have you?" At that moment, trays of food were being carried into the dining hall one after another. A line of devotees queued up to be served. But when they pushed the food before the head nun, she suddenly signaled them to stop. Then she explained, "Wait until Lord Bulkin gives his opinion before serving." Meanwhile, in the dining room, Theodora's parrot was reading the evaluated data. The last known disappearance point forms a very large, shallow pit. That location is... Clara read and exclaimed, "No way. What a coincidence." Beside her, Zane still showed a lazy expression as he furrowed his brow in thought. The Imperial capital was established with the Forbidden Research Institute. Seeing everyone's doubtful faces, Bulkin then explained, "To be precise, it's a site someone brought a large number of blood slaves there." "What were they trying to do? Do you have any leads?" Magnus replied with a pensive look. "It could only correspond to that project." Uncertain what he meant, Clara across asked, "Are you saying that relates to the Holy Blood experiment?" Hearing them mention it, Zane also grew suspicious. "We're all aware that project failed, even using large quantities of fresh blood failed. And the place was abandoned for hundreds of years until today." Bulkin smiled in agreement. "Yes. The Forbidden Research Institute has been secret and derelict for centuries." As he said this, his face suddenly turned grave. "So only a few people here should know about those matters." Hearing him say that, everyone, simultaneously, felt panic in their hearts. The head nun grew even more anxious, sweating profusely. "This is bad. Lord Bulkin means there's a traitor among us." Then she suddenly noticed Magnus sitting silently and saying nothing. Not just him, but everyone in the room was the same. She wondered, why? Why is no one speaking? Seeing no objections, Bulkin continued, "Today Veronica is dead." His gaze grew somewhat sorrowful as he said, "I killed her." Then he looked around at everyone, feigning benevolence. "Although Veronica did nothing wrong. For your sakes I acted." Then he seemed to remember. "Oh, you want to ask who Veronica was?" He asked himself and then answered, "Never mind. I'll let you meet her now." No sooner had he finished than the devotees outside began bringing in the food to serve. They opened a tray to reveal a piece of meat whose origin was unclear. Theodora's parrot squawked in fright at the sight. The head nun worried and pondered, "Is this a test or a threat? But if we refuse Lord Bulkin, something bad will happen." While she was lost in thought, the parrot flew off in panic, protesting, "I'm just a bird. I take my leave." But as soon as it took off, the head nun caught it. At that moment, a devotee used a fork to force food into Zane's mouth. Then Magnus and Clara tasted it in turn. Clara immediately praised it. "Delicious, it's fish meat." Bulkin, pleased to see her enjoying it, said cheerfully, "Yes, Veronica is very tasty. Worth my personally cooking it." The parrot had also tasted the food and muttered, "The day of the great feast has come." The head nun, after tasting it, felt both fortunate and horrified, crying, "What the naming dishes like this is terrifying. But the cooking is excellent. Lord Bolkin is very capable." Seeing everyone only sample a piece, Bolkin reassured them. "Eat heartily, we'll serve Sovria next." With the topic fully shifted, Clara couldn't hide her curiosity and asked about the research site. But he replied indifferently, "Oh, it's not important. Eat first." Meanwhile, Herrick was walking through the forest, lying in his arms. The blue-haired girl complained. "I'm starving." He comforted her. "Hold on a bit longer. Didn't you say we'd soon become gods?" She countered, "Even gods need to eat." Hearing that, he wondered, is that necessary? Unnoticed by them, someone in the trees was silently watching. It was a freckled boy who glared at Herrick with hatred and cursed. Damned church. At that time, Clara was walking down the corridor to return, followed by Magnus. Suddenly the man called her back. "Lady Clara, please stop." She smiled in greeting. "What can I do for you?" "Lord Magnus," he stammered. "There are some matters related to the investigative report from the meeting." Knowing what he wanted to ask, Clara answered without hiding. The meeting ended abruptly after Lord Bolkin hinted a secret was revealed and a traitor was mentioned, to be honest. "I'm not clear on his meaning either." Seeing she was unclear, he pressed on with another question. "Did you notice that among the escorts of the blood chamber, one had the surname Lumendur?" She replied, "Of course there was one." He continued, "Yes, that child who brought shame to the family was used as a pawn by evildoers and ended up dying under unclear circumstances." Hearing this, Clara immediately understood. Someone wanted to exploit that relationship to frame the family and make them suspected as traitors. Seeing, she understood. He voiced the suspicion in his mind. But why did it coincide so perfectly to make the ritual succeed? She smiled and replied, "Bold speculation." Then her gaze tightened and her voice dropped. "But it makes sense if whoever's behind this knew the exact method. They wouldn't act now and would make it so blatant." Seeing she grasped the issue with just a few words, Magnus couldn't help but praise, "As expected of you. Clara, you see things thoroughly." She gave a wry smile and replied, "You're flattering me." Then she turned and asked him, "But why tell me this? Aren't you afraid I might be the one who harms them?" He answered matter-of-factly, "Because you're an ordinary person who can mingle normally, they are not." Hearing that, she realized she had asked needlessly and agreed with him. Right. Indeed. Scene shift. The moon was now high, in the forest, lying in Herrick's arms. The blue-haired girl sighed. "I'm exhausted. I can't walk anymore," he warned her. "Stay alert, you're not traveling alone." Then she looked weary and suggested, "Stop and rest for a while. The church pursuers probably won't come. I don't want to travel at night anymore." Hearing that, the three stopped and made camp, unaware that a pair of eyes in the distance was watching them. The watcher was a freckled boy, now gnawing on meat and staring at them with angry eyes. The women and children, neither resisting nor fleeing, seemed completely controlled by that iron-skinned church. Meanwhile, beside Herrick, he took out some kind of tool. Then he screwed it together. Suddenly a flame spurted from the nozzle. He slowly directed that flame into the prepared bundle of kindling, and thus a simple warming fire was lit. Watching from afar, the freckled boy gaped in amazement. That thing can make fire. Time passed like that until the moon rose overhead. The three of them fell into a deep sleep. Only then did the boy creep closer. But suddenly the blue-haired girl murmured in her sleep, "I'm so hungry," which made the boy involuntarily look over. Then the boy saw the mark carved on her neck. The boy's eyes showed shock. He hastily covered his mouth to keep from making a sound. The boy quickly ran and hid behind a tree, sweating with worry and thinking to himself, "This woman is a blood slave." The boy seemed to realize. No wonder she tried to run away. That mark won't hide her anywhere. They'll probably take her to Casamon City and lock her up. Thinking that, he hesitated, then reluctantly showed regret and told himself he couldn't dwell on it. The main job was important. Decision made. The boy approached Herrick's group's backpack. He carefully opened the pack. Seeing the fire-making tool in his hands, the boy couldn't help but feel delighted. But then his gaze fell on something else in the backpack. He opened it and was stunned to see a wad of cash in the wallet. Immediately after, The boy closed it. Then he shoved it into the torn pouch at his side and carefully tightened the bag. Having finished, the boy left happily. But suddenly, Sandy appeared before the boy. The girl stared at the boy with an innocent gaze. At this time, the fire Herrick had lit was nearly extinguished. Meanwhile, he was still asleep. But suddenly, a piercing shout rang out. "You killed Nino." At the strange sound, Herrick immediately woke with a start. Then a hand from nowhere suddenly pressed his head down. He was a white-haired man with one eye covered, after knocking him down. He pinned him beneath him. Then he grabbed a knife and, lunging at him, shouted angrily, "Die. For me." But just as the blade was about to strike his face, Herrick managed to grab the man's hand and halt him, seizing the opportunity. He delivered a kick that sent him flying backward, once standing. He angrily yelled at him. "I warned you before you were obstinately deluded," the man retorted. "Why didn't you say it plainly?" he roared back. "Then you would have saved only him. The other blood slaves would still die." The man snapped angrily. "If you didn't want them to die, act. Why didn't you break free from the chains preventing me?" He fell silent at that. The man approached and continued accusing. "You're not as good as you think. You wanted to see me taste bitterness." He denied it. "That's not true." But the man kept on. "Concern for the blood slaves is only lip service. You didn't fight for them." He denied it again. "That's not true." He stammered an explanation. "I just didn't want to." But the more he explained, the smaller his voice grew. Hurtful words followed. And when he looked up, he saw the man plunge the knife into his chest. The man continued his questioning. "So you could stand by and do nothing? Watch them die without helping?" His eyes grew increasingly cruel, his voice deepening. "Whatever you claim you didn't know how to do, the truth is, you never wanted to do anything." Then suddenly he awoke with a start, so it had only been a dream. Looking beside him, the fire had been extinguished. Just then, a hurried voice cried out, "Something's wrong." Turning to look, he saw the blue-haired girl clutching her head and screaming, "Something's wrong, Sandy is gone." Seeing Herrick awake, she ran over and grabbed his arm. "Don't just stand there. Hurry and look for her." Seeing her urgency, he reassured her, "Don't rush. She's probably fine." They then searched together, and as they passed a bush, they found Sandy slumped on the ground. The blue-haired girl couldn't contain her joy and shouted, "Ah, we found her." But when the little girl turned her head, she saw Sandy's mouth covered in blood. Seeing this, both of them flinched, and the blue-haired girl screamed. Startled, scene shift, by the riverbank. The blue-haired girl scooped up a handful of water. Then she splashed it over Sandy to wash her and asked, "It stinks, you're covered in blood. What did you do?" Then she noticed Sandy's clothes were stained red and said, "Her clothes are soaked in blood too. But it's all red so you can't tell, don't bother washing them." Beside her, Herrick guessed. Maybe she met some wild animal and then was eaten by Sandy. Hearing that, she suddenly scolded the girl angrily. "Sandy, you stink. I'm still hungry and you've already eaten your fill." Herrick interjected to help. "Sandy's not human. Why compare yourself to it?" Hearing that, she hurriedly covered the girl's ears and angrily said, "Don't listen. Don't listen, get those dirty words out." Herrick then reacted, flailing his hands as he hastily explained, "Stop joking. You know I didn't mean it that way." At the same time, somewhere in the forest, the freckled boy lay on the ground. Suddenly, the boy woke with a start, eyes wide in terror. Then he quickly sat bolt upright. Afterward, he frowned and thought, "I remember last night," recalling the scene from last night, right when he first met Sandy. Seeing the girl, showed no movement. He slowly moved closer to her side. When he was a short distance away, he turned back and still saw her sitting there, silently watching him. Seeing that, he didn't hesitate and sprinted off. "I'm running." While running, he didn't forget to glance back and wave goodbye. "Bye-bye, kid." But as he turned, the mocking smile vanished. Sandy had burst into a sprint and immediately closed the gap. He cried in horror. It ran right into the shadows, and when he wasn't paying attention, he suddenly crashed into something. Remembering this, he looked puzzled. Then I passed out. His gaze turned forward, seeing the large pool of blood before him. He wondered what had happened last night. The black-haired boy sat up in bewilderment, wondering if that child had been eaten by a beast. At that moment, he suddenly remembered something. When he saw his belongings intact, he breathed a sigh of relief. Phew. They're still here. Then he mumbled regretfully. Poor kid, if there's an afterlife. I hope she won't be born into a world where the strong prey on the weak again. At that time, Herrick's group had arrived at a nearby village. He couldn't contain his joy and called out. Great, a small village. Let's go buy food. Elise, stretched out beside him, reminded in a low voice. I'm starving. But we have one more thing to do before we leave. Hearing that, Herrick promptly took out his backpack. If you hadn't reminded me, I'd have forgotten to hide this charm. While he was rummaging, she sighed. Hurry, and smear it on. I don't want to be captured again. Herrick froze as he looked into the empty compartment. The pouch of blood points was gone. How can we buy food? Elise beside him asked in alarm. What? She leaned forward anxiously. Did you forget to grab it when we left? Seeing that, he seriously denied it. No, the lighter we used last night is gone too. At that, Elise suddenly sprang up and loudly proclaimed, Ah, divine punishment. The hidden god technique is the penalty former gods gave to those who wish to become gods. But I won't submit. I'm clever. I've already thought of a counter. Herrick could only feel helpless at her crazy behavior, you and your tricks, while he busied himself concealing the charm. She murmured softly. Later in the village, watch my performance and improvise as needed. Hearing that, Herrick only gave a small hum. In an old house in the village, people greeted each other. Good morning. Village chief, I'm here to collect the dried meat. The village chief, peeling corn, chided in a low tone. You're late again today. Go inside and help yourself. He also called out loudly as a reminder. Remember to take Yelitz's share too. The black-haired boy waved his hand at this and said, Got it. Seeing that, the chief returned to his work with peace of mind. Suddenly someone stood blocking his path. Looking up, the chief saw Herrick's large figure. He couldn't help trembling as he stammered. Soldiers. Soldiers of the order. Seeing the chief's frightened look, Elise nudged him urgently. Don't just stand there, greet him. Just then, the black-haired boy finished gathering his things and stepped out. Village chief. I'm done. Seeing the scene before him, he suddenly froze. Then he quickly hid behind the warehouse door. The gloomy boy muttered to himself. The church's dogs have come to the village. The black-haired boy glanced toward Sandy and wondered if that child was still alive. This made him more terrified. Are they here for me? No. No, the child seems unable to speak and can't testify against me. Let's wait and see. Over here? For some reason, Elise loudly scolded Herrick. What's with the greetings? Do you understand our situation? Leave it to me. He just blinked, saying, Oh, having dealt with his slow teammate. Elise suddenly dropped to her knees. She then seized the chief's feet and wailed pitifully. Please, sir, give me some food. I haven't eaten in 2 days. I'm starving. Seeing this, the black-haired boy burned with anger. What? How dare they? He gritted his teeth, thinking the church's dogs are detestable, enjoying privileges, forcing the chief to hand over food, making that captured girl kneel and beg, taking pleasure in trampling others' dignity, such devilish behavior. And faced with Elise's humiliation, the village chief bowed down and said, I understand. I'll prepare food at once for the honored church soldiers. After a while, a simple spread of food was laid out. Seeing this, Elise sniffled and cried with joy. Great, finally real food. As she hurried to fill her starving stomach, Herrick suddenly reached out to stop her. Wait a moment. He pushed a bowl of soup toward her and signaled, Eat this first. You've been on thin gruel for a long time and haven't eaten for 2 days. Eating this suddenly will give you stomach pain. Hearing this, Elise's face fell. Oh, why is that? While the group ate, the black-haired boy kept watching closely in silence. He frowned in hatred. The church's dogs were outrageous. They ate meat themselves but only gave that girl porridge, insulting her spirit and even oppressing her materially. After a while, Elise finally proclaimed in satisfaction, Phew. I'm full now, I want to rest a bit. Then she called loudly outside. Hey, any vacant places to stay in the village? The honored church soldiers want to rest. At this sequence, Herrick anxiously turned and said, "Hey, we have no blood points, freeloading and now wanting lodging too." After a moment, the village chief cautiously stepped forward. "Honored church soldiers, our village is small and has no inn. If you want lodging," before he could finish, the black-haired boy hurried forward and blurted out, "Stay at my house." "Honored soldier, my house has a spare room,